Chapter 991. Well, what's going on here? Everyone was stunned and waved their palms one by one, but all the energy in their bodies disappeared and they became ordinary people. Guo Wei frowned and clenched his fist tightly, but the energy in his body was also suppressed, and he couldn't show it at all. This should be a suppression circle, which suppressed the energy in us. Hu Beiqi explained. Patriarch Hu, do you have a way to crack this array? Guo Wei asked. Being suppressed, they couldn't open the copper coffin, and there was no way to know what was inside. Hu Beiqi shook his head. I can't decipher a magic formation of this size, and the mountains are used as the formation, and the water is the eye. This kind of large-scale work, I am afraid that only the top magic masters can arrange it. If I guessed correctly, this should be the dragon veins in the mouths of the emperors of all dynasties. Dragon vein? Guo Wei was slightly taken aback. He didn't understand this at all, so he didn't understand what Hu Beiqi was talking about. Throughout the dynasties, the royal family will let talented people and different people look for the treasure land of the dragon veins that can make the country prosperous. This should be the dragon veins that a certain emperor found, but I don't know which dynasty it is. Hu Beiqi explained. Hu Beiqi explained that Guo Wei understood it now, but looking at the copper coffin in front of him and giving up like this, Guo Wei was still a little unwilling. But now they have all lost their energy, there is no way to get close to the copper coffin, and now they can only go back the same way, but it is worthwhile to get the 90,000 mile mountains and rivers map. Since we found the coffin and we can't open it, let's go back. This trial is over. Guo Wei had to issue an order to end the trial. A lot of people were a little dejected. They thought it was the imperial mausoleum, and there must be a lot of treasures in it, but in the end, there was nothing, just a painting, which was taken by Long Xiao. Now that Guo Wei has spoken, everyone is not following him. After all, it is useless to stay here, their energy is suppressed, and they can't do anything. But just when Guo Wei was about to lead people back the same way, David suddenly took a step forward. Wait a minute, you stole my stuff and left like this. David's eyes were cold, and there was a smile on the corner of his mouth. Just when the formation was activated and everyone's energy was suppressed, David tried it and found that he was not affected at all. David repaired not strength, but aura, so this array had no effect on David. Now that everyone has been suppressed, and even that Guo Wei has become an ordinary person, David doesn't need to be afraid of him, and just took the opportunity to grab the Zhuanli Mountains and Rivers map. David, what do you want to do? Long Xiao looked at David and asked. Of course I got the painting back. David said it, and strode towards Long Xiao. David, although I have been suppressed, you are not much better. If you want to do it, we people can beat you to a pulp. Long Xiao was not afraid at all. Although his energy was suppressed, he believed that David was no doubt like an ordinary person now, and there was nothing to be afraid of. Really? Then try it. David stepped forward, grabbed the map of 90,000 miles of mountains and rivers, and grabbed it with a light force. Long Xiao was startled, and smashed David with a punch. This punch was completely the power of the body's explosion, without any trace of energy. Bang! Long Xiao punched David's chest, but David didn't move, followed by Long Xiao's screams. Long Xiao only felt that his punch was like hitting an iron plate, and the severe pain spread all over his body. Snapped! David slapped it, and Long Xiao's body was like a kite with a broken string, it flew out at once, and hit the stone wall heavily. Chapter 992. This sudden change made everyone look at David in shock. Now everyone is suppressed, and they are completely ordinary people. You must know that a slap from an ordinary person will not have such great power. David, you don't want to live anymore, do you? Give me the painting. Guo Wei stepped forward, glared at David and said. What kind of thing are you? The painting is mine, and I will not give it to anyone. If you have the ability, you can get it yourself. Are you not the peak of Wuzong? Are you not a genius? Come and get it. David provoked Guo Wei. Everyone looked at David and thought he was crazy and dared to openly provoke Guo Wei. You wanna die? Guo Wei's face was gloomy, and he suddenly raised his hand and patted David. Even if his strength was suppressed, Guo Wei's palm was very powerful. David looked at Guo Wei who was rushing over, and he felt unhappy with this guy for a long time. As soon as he reached out his hand, he grabbed Guo Wei's collar, and lifted Guo Wei up with a hand. At this time, Guo Wei was like a little chicken, struggling desperately in David's hands. David, let me go, or I'll make your life worse than death. Guo Wei roared. At this moment Guo Wei lost his face. At this time, you still dare to threaten me? As David said that, he swung his hand towards Guo Wei's face. Clap clap clap. After a few slaps in a row, Guo Wei's face was swollen, and his mouth was also swollen. Seeing that David dared to beat Guo Wei like this, everyone opened their mouths in shock, but no one dared to care. Now they can see it. It turns out that this magic circle did not suppress David's strength, so such a scene appeared. In this case, now here, David is the god, the emperor, and no one dares to provoke him. You're threatening me to see? David looked at Guo Wei with a sneer and said. Guo Wei opened his mouth, but said nothing, and lowered his head helplessly. If it goes on like this, he will be beaten to death by David. Seeing that Guo Wei lost his arrogance, David threw Guo Wei aside like a dead dog. Long Xiao looked at the scene in front of him, and his face became extremely ugly. He wanted to scold David just now, but now he can only close his mouth tightly, not daring to provoke David. Although Long Xiao kept his mouth shut and did not provoke David, David did not intend to let him go, and walked straight towards Long Xiao. Then he grabbed Long Xiao's hair and carried it aside. David, I gave you the painting. I won't rob you. Why are you still looking for me? Long Xiao trembled slightly, and asked in confusion. I'm fucking sick of seeing you, okay? David kicked Long Xiao's chest fiercely, and then rammed Long Xiao's head towards the stone wall. Soon, Long Xiao's face was covered with blood, and his facial features were twisted together. Everyone watched, but no one stopped him. Guo Wei's face was very gloomy, but he didn't dare to care anymore. The two martial masters of the Long family could only rush around in circles and dared not step forward, so they could only look at Long Xingqiu. Long Xingqiu didn't have the slightest expression on his face, but he was already gloating in his heart. He himself has long been unhappy with Long Xiao. If there is a chance, Long Xingqiu would like to beat Long Xiao hard like this. Long Xiao was dying, but David did not stop. No one knows why David is treating Long Xiao like crazy at this moment, and how deep the hatred between the two is. The reason why David is like this is because he thinks of his mother, who is still suffering in the Long family, so he can't control his emotions. David, that's all right. If you really kill Long Xiao, you'll have a hard time in the future. At this time, Dong Jiahao stepped forward and persuaded David. David smiled bitterly. Even if he didn't kill Long Xiao, the Long family would not let him go, but David couldn't take Long Xiao's life yet, he had to wait for the opportunity to use Long Xiao's life to kill himself. Mother replaced. Chapter 993. David let go, and Long Xiao fell to the ground like a puddle of mud. At this time, Long Xingqiu asked the two martial masters of the Long family to help Long Xiao back. This painting is mine, and no one wants to take it away. If anyone has an idea for this painting, you can come and try it. If no one has an idea, then get out. David glanced at everyone and said. At this time, whoever dared to make up the idea of that painting, all followed the same path. Long Xiao and Guo Wei were also supported by the Long family and left. If I don't take revenge, I swear I will not be a human being. I must kill him. Long Xiao, who walked out of the cave, shouted loudly after his energy recovered. Don't worry, this little BA5TARD can't get out of the ancient tomb. If he dares to come out, I will let him smash his corpse into 10,000 pieces. Guo Wei's eyes flashed with murderous intent. In the cave at this time, everyone left, but Ning Ji didn't leave, just stood there quietly waiting for something. Brother Ning, everything is gone, what are you still doing here? Dong Jiahao looked at Ning Ji and asked. I'm just curious about what's in the copper coffin, I want to stay and see what it is. Ning Ji said lightly. Now our energy is suppressed, and no one can get close to the copper coffin, what do you think? Dong Jiahao asked suspiciously. Isn't he still there? Ning Ji pointed at David, he will definitely open the copper coffin. Dong Jiahao looked at David and asked, David, are you going to open this copper coffin? David nodded. Now that he's all here, of course he wants to see if there are any treasures in the copper coffin. But you have to be careful, there are too many organs here, and even if you get the treasure, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave, those people must be waiting for you outside. Dong Jiahao reminded. I know, but I'll take a look at what's in this copper coffin first. After David finished speaking, his figure paused and jumped directly onto the copper coffin. Looking at the slightly raised dragon head on the copper coffin, David turned his hand gently, and then held his breath. Crunch! With the sound of friction, the lid on the copper coffin slowly opened. After opening it, a golden light emanated from the copper coffin, and what appeared in front of David was a corpse. The corpse was wearing clothes woven with gold threads, with a certain crown on the corpse's head. I don't know how many years have passed, but the corpse still maintains its original posture, and it has not rotted at all. On both sides of the corpse are some treasures and jade objects. At the moment when the copper coffin was opened, David felt a huge aura emerge from the copper coffin. These auras may be the reason for keeping the corpse from rot. David, is there any treasure in it? Dong Jiahao shouted curiously when he saw the copper coffin opened. There are no treasures, they are all jewelry and jade, and they are not very helpful for cultivation. David shook his head and said, David didn't care much about these jewels and jades. He was not short of money, and he didn't want these things. In the end, he only chose a few pieces of jade that contained spiritual energy and put them in his pocket. Just as David was about to close the coffin, a dark ring on the corpse's hand suddenly attracted David's idea. Generally, these emperors like to wear jade wrenches. I have never seen any emperor wearing a ring with a dark body, and it does not look very beautiful. David, who felt that the ring was a little weird, took off the ring himself, put it in his pocket, and then closed the coffin. After jumping from the copper coffin, Dong Jiahao hurriedly surrounded him, and Zhao Chuang also moved up curiously. Brother Chen, what's the treasure, let's see. Zhao Chuang asked impatiently. Ning Ji also walked over with the hunchbacked old man at this time. Chapter 994. David took out the jade in his pocket. These jades contained aura of scrutiny. When Dong Jiahao and Zhao Chuang picked up the jade and played with them, a refreshing and comfortable feeling immediately spread throughout the body. David, these things are really precious. Dong Jiahao said in surprise. Since Brother Dong likes it, I'll give you one. David chose a piece of jade and handed it to Dong Jiahao. Dong Jiahao was taken aback for a moment, then he laughed and said, David, that's interesting, I've made a deal with you as a friend. Dong Jiahao also took the jade unceremoniously, and David chose another one for Zhao Chuang. Ning Ji looked at him with hot eyes, but didn't say anything. Brother Chen, are these jade objects inside? Are there any other treasures? Zhao Chuang asked curiously. David took out the dark ring and said, and this ring, I don't know what it is for. There is no spiritual energy on this ring. David also used his divine sense to probe it. It feels very ordinary, but it is obviously unreasonable to wear such an ordinary ring on the hand of an emperor. Let me see. Zhao Chuang took the ring and looked at it carefully. Soon, Zhao Chuang found a few small characters on the inside of the ring, and then he was a little surprised. There are 3 characters on this ring, it is a storage ring. When David heard it, he hurriedly took the ring back into his hand, and sure enough, he saw the word storage ring on the inside. Soon, David's eyes lit up, and then he bit his finger and dripped a drop of blood on it. When the blood touched the ring, there was a buzzing sound, followed by the dark ring, which instantly turned blood red, and then a blood-red breath shot out from the ring, hitting David's eyebrows directly. David thought about it, and soon found that a chaotic space appeared in the storage ring. This should be the place where the storage ring stores things. Slowly, the storage ring turned black again. David put the storage ring on his hand and looked at the map of 90,000 miles of mountains and rivers in his hand. As his thoughts flashed, the map of 90,000 miles of mountains and rivers appeared on the storage ring. Among it really is a baby. David was ecstatic. Although this storage ring has no spiritual energy, it is an absolute magic weapon. Brother David, can you give me more than your storage ring? Just when David was happy, Ningxi suddenly said. Ningxi's words made David stunned. Ningxi, why are you so shameless and ask someone for something? It's too embarrassing for your Ning family. Dong Jiahao looked at Ningxi and sneered. Ningxi was not angry at all, with a faint smile on his face. You can't get out of the ancient tomb even if you get these treasures, then Guo Wei will definitely bring someone to stop you at the exit, rather than those treasures from the Martial Arts Alliance. Those guys, if you snatch it, you might as well give it to me, and I can guarantee to send you out of the ancient tomb safely. The reason why Ningxi didn't leave seems to have been planned for a long time. If he wants to deal with Guo Wei, he can only rely on the hunchbacked old man he brought, so he has been waiting to take advantage of the fisherman. Damn it, the reason why you didn't leave, why are you waiting here? You are too calculating. Dong Jiahao couldn't help but utter a foul language. Ningxi ignored Dong Jiahao, but looked at David and said, David, a storage ring, in exchange for your lives, I feel it is worth it. David smiled lightly, why do I feel like it's not worth it at all? Ningxi was stunned, why, do you think Guo Wei and the others dare not kill you? It's not that I don't dare, but I can't kill me at all. Your wishful thinking is wrong. David smiled coldly, followed by a wave of his palm, and a golden light enveloped him directly. Chapter 995. Then David jumped off the underground river without hesitation, and then showed ahead and said, this underground river must lead to the outside, I don't need to go out through the entrance of the ancient tomb at all, so they want to kill me, it is not that easy. After that, David's body sank directly to the bottom of the river and disappeared. Seeing that David was gone, Ningxi's eyes narrowed, and greed flashed in his eyes. He didn't expect that David had already figured out a way out. Let's go, Ningxi could only leave with the hunchbacked old man. Dong Jiahao and the others also went back the same way. David followed the underground river and swam for a long time before showing his head. At this time, David was already in a pool at the foot of the mountain. After landing, the golden light on David disappeared, and his clothes were still dry. I didn't expect to come out so far in one breath. David looked at the tall buildings in the distance, and found that this place was 100 miles away from Kyoto. Without the slightest delay, David walked towards the capital. Although the trial time this time was short, David had gained a lot. A storage ring and a map of 90,000 miles of mountains and rivers were all priceless treasures. Especially the 9,000 miles of mountains and rivers map, David just used it to practice. With David's current strength, it takes a lot of spiritual energy to practice. Now this 90,000 miles of mountains and rivers map has a strong spiritual energy for David to practice. At the entrance of the ancient tomb on the other side, Guo Wei was waiting for David to come out with a group of people from aristocratic families. Long Xiao was sent back to the Long family because of his serious injuries, while Guo Wei vowed to wait until David. If this revenge is not repaid, how could he hold the title of Director of the Martial Arts Alliance in his hands? But after waiting for a long time, David never came out, but Dong Jiahao, Ning Ji and Zhao Chuang came out. Seeing that these people came out, but David was not there, Guo Wei directly stopped Dong Jiahao and the others and asked, "Where's David?" "How do I know David? If you want to know, go in and find it yourself." Dong Jiahao rolled his eyes at Guo Wei with disdain on his face. Guo Wei was furious, but instead of attacking Dong Jiahao, he endured it. "Master Ning, do you know why David didn't come out with you?" Guo Wei looked at Ning Ji and asked politely. "I don't know." After Ning Ji finished speaking, he left with the hunchbacked old man. It's not that Ning Ji helped David, but he didn't want Guo Wei and the others to find David, because Ning Ji still wanted to get some treasures on David's body. Especially the storage ring, Ning Ji fell in love with it at first sight. Guo Wei saw that Dong Jiahao and Ning Ji didn't say anything, so he turned his attention to Zhao Chuang. Seeing Guo Wei looking at him, Zhao Chuang hurriedly waved his hand and said, "I don't know anything, don't ask me." Guo Wei's eyes narrowed, and he stretched out his hand to grab Zhao Chuang's collar. "How could you not know? What do you want to do? If you want to beat me, I will let someone report it." The director of the dignified Kyoto Martial Arts Alliance, beat a child. Zhao Chuang threatened Guo Wei. Guo Wei almost laughed out of anger when he heard what Zhao Chuang said. Zhao Chuang, a guy in his 20s, even said that he was a child. But looking at the people from the sect family around, Guo Wei could only let go of his hand and shouted at Zhao Chuang, "Get out of here!" Zhao Chuang hurriedly left with his own people, while Guo Wei continued to guard the entrance of the ancient tomb. After David rushed back to Kyoto, he went directly to the Dharma Protector Pavilion. Now, for David, only the Dharma Guardian Pavilion is a safe place in Kyoto. Zhao Waoqi was a little surprised to see David coming back so quickly. After all, every trial took at least 7 or 8 days, but David came back after just 1 day. Chapter 996. Mr. Chen, has something happened? Have you been kicked out of the trial? Zhao Wuji asked hurriedly. David came back so soon. In Zhao Waoqi's opinion, he thought that Guo Wei made an excuse to drive David back. No, the trial is over. David shook his head. It's over. Zhao Waoqi was taken aback, so soon. David took a sip of water, and then followed Zhao Waoqi about what happened in the ancient tomb. Hearing that, Zhao Waoqi's eyes were wide open and his mouth could swallow an egg. Mr. Chen, you beat Director Guo. Zhao Waoqi said with a face full of shock. Then Guo Wei is obviously partial to the Long family and robs me of things. Of course I will beat him. David said indifferently. It's broken, it's broken. I'm going to talk to Mr. Shi about this matter. These guys in the Martial Arts Alliance are all small-bellied chicken intestines. You beat that Guo Wei this time, and he will definitely not let it go. Zhao Waoqi had a nervous look on his face, and then left. He was going to report to Mr. Shi. Now, relying on the name of the Protector Pavilion alone, cannot keep David, and only Mr. Shi can speak. Seeing that Zhao Wuji was so anxious, David was a little moved. Zhao Waoqi walked back, and David went to his room to rest directly. He didn't care about the fight against Guo Wei and Long Xiao. Dragon family. Long Jingguo looked at Long Xiao, who was almost disfigured, with heart-wrenching pain. Is that how you protect the eldest young master? Long Jingguo glared at Long Xingxiu and the 2 dragon family Wuzong masters and roared. Patriarch, in the situation at the time, we lost all our energy. We were not David's opponents at all, and I don't know why. The suppression of the magic circle didn't work for David, and David's skill was not suppressed. Long Xingxiu said with trembling all over. Long Jingguo's eyes narrowed slightly. It seems that David definitely inherited his father's blood, otherwise how could such a thing happen? Dad, who is this guy David? Who is his father? Long Xiao asked Long Jingguo. Xiao, you go to recuperate. Some things, you will naturally understand after a while. When I know the secret of David, our Long family will become the largest family in Kyoto, and you will also become a young one. The best man in his generation. Long Jingguo gently patted Long Xiao on the shoulder. Long Xiao nodded and turned to rest, while Long Jingguo said to Long Xingxiu, go on down, don't tell anyone what happened today. Long Jingguo couldn't afford to lose this person. His son was beaten, and he was almost disfigured. It would be too embarrassing to say it out, but even if their Long family didn't say it, so many sects and families were present at the time, it was impossible to hide it. Long Xingxiu also left, while Long Jingguo walked to the backyard, opened a door, and walked in slowly. In the dim dungeon, Long Ruotong was imprisoned in it. She had been imprisoned here for more than 20 years, and all her skills were sealed. She could not escape from such a simple dungeon. Seeing Long Jingguo coming, Long Ruotong turned his head slowly, without even looking at Long Jingguo. The two were brothers and sisters, but they came to this kind of field. My good sister, I didn't expect you to give birth to a very kind son and beat Xiao'er. I came today to tell you that you will be able to meet your son soon. What else will you do then? If you don't say anything, I will let your mother and son go to Huangchuan together. After Long Jingguo finished speaking, he reached out and took off a leather whip from the wall and beat Long Ruotong fiercely. Long Ruotong gritted her teeth and said nothing. She didn't know how many times she had been beaten over the years. The more Long Ruotong is like this, the more ruthless Long Jingguo fights. He wants to hurt David and Long Xiao's anger, all of which is ruthlessly poured on Long Ruotong. At this moment, Long Jingguo did not treat Long Ruotong at all. Treat it like your own sister. If it wasn't for the secrets he wanted to know in Long Ruotong's mouth, Long Jingguo would have killed Long Ruotong long ago. Chapter 997 Kyoto Guardian Pavilion. David locked himself in the room. He had already opened the map of 90,000 miles of mountains and rivers, and a spiritual consciousness came out, and the whole person seemed to be in the scene in the painting. Condensing the heart Ju operates, and a large amount of spiritual energy continuously gathers towards David's body. On top of David's head, the gathered spiritual energy forms a vortex. While David was cultivating, two people came to the Dharma Protector Pavilion in Kyoto. It was Sonia and Gulinger who were recovering from their injuries in Yaishin Valley. Xiaolan and Wu Meyer stayed in Medicine God Valley to accompany Long Wu. Zhao Waoqi had seen Sonia and Gulinger, and when he saw the two came to look for David, he hurriedly sent someone to call David. Feeling the breath of Sonia and Gulinger, Zhao Wuji felt a burst of surprise in his heart. He could feel that the strength of these two girls was already above him. He still remembered the first time he went to David, when he saw Sonia and Gulinger. Sonia was just an ordinary person, and Gulinger was just a little martial artist, but after just a few months, the two girls' the strength actually surpassed him. Zhao Waoqi couldn't understand why David was just a monster. How could the women around David be so evil, and the speed of cultivation was too fast. Soon, David was called, and when he saw Geng Sonia and Gulinger coming, David was very surprised and excited. Why are you two here? Are you healthy? David asked Sonia and Gulinger. The two nodded at the same time, and then Sonia said, "We are worried about you, so I will follow Linger to see you." "I'm fine, I'll be fine." David turned around and let Sonia and Gulinger take a look. "Then the Long family didn't trouble you? You killed 5 of their guardians?" Gulinger asked. As soon as Gulinger's words came out, Zhao Waoqi on the side was stunned. He didn't know that David killed the 5 guardians of the Long family. David followed Zhao Waoqi to explain it, and then Zhao Waoqi said angrily, "This Long family, even if he came to Mr. Shi's words, he didn't pay attention to what Mr. Shi said, and secretly sent someone to deal with you. Fortunately, I put this to the test." The matter was reported to Mr. Shi, and Mr. Shi also spoke, and the Martial Arts Alliance is not allowed to seek personal revenge against you. Gate Master Zhao, thank you. David smiled slightly. Mr. Chen, you are too polite. This is my duty. These people in the Martial Arts Alliance have also gone too far. They are openly showing favoritism during the trial. Zhao Waoqi said. Sonia, Linger, go to my room, I'll show you a baby. David planned to ask Sonia and Gu Linger to go to his room, look at the picture of 9,000 miles of mountains and rivers, and practice together. But Sonia and Gu Linger blushed, and glanced at Zhao Waoqi next to them secretly. They misunderstood David's words, and they were called to the room when they met, which was definitely not a good thing, and the baby they were looking at might be. Mr. Chen, talk to me, I still have something to do. Zhao Wuji smiled slightly and walked away. And David hurriedly took Sonia and Gu Linger to his room. Zhao Waoqi looked at David's back with envy for a while. Mr. Chen's physique is really good, hugging from left to right is so comfortable. After David pulled Sonia and Gu Linger into the room, he immediately let them sit on the bed. David, this is in the Guardian Pavilion, what are you doing? And let us two together, this. Sonia blushed, although she and David had established a relationship for a long time, but the two of them hadn't really taken that step. Now David suddenly wants her to go with Gu Linger. Sonia is very embarrassed. Don't talk, close your eyes, I'll take out the baby for you to see. David urged Sonia and Gu Linger to close their eyes. Chapter 998. Sonia and Gu Linger glanced at each other, and then Gu Linger leaned into Sonia's ear and said softly, let David bully you first, after all, you two got together first, and I have no experience, so I'm afraid. You undead, I have no experience, I am afraid, I am also a big girl. Sonia stepped forward and patted Gu Linger. I didn't mean that, you misunderstood. Gu Linger followed Sonia around. Seeing the two people fighting, David said with a confused expression, what are you two doing? Hurry up and close your eyes, you will definitely like this baby after you see it. When Sonia and Gu Linger heard this, their faces turned even redder. Sonia rolled her eyes at David and said, how do you know that the two of us would like that ugly thing? That's right, we don't like that ugly thing. Gu Linger also followed suit. David was stunned, it's not ugly at all, you can see it when you see it, it's very beautiful. Sonia and Gu Linger wanted to say something, but David stepped forward directly, covered the two with a quilt, and then warned, don't peep, I said it's okay, you can only watch. Sonia and Gu Linger blushed, they could only nod obediently. They could only hear each other's violent heartbeats. After all, in their eyes, doing such a thing for the first time felt very nervous. Seeing that Sonia and Gu Linger were both blinded by this, David took out the map of 90,000 li of mountains and rivers. When David opened the map of 90,000 li of mountains and rivers, he found that the scenery above had changed again. At this time, the map of Zhuan Li mountains and rivers was covered with snow, and there were a few white bears running. Could this be the North Pole? David said in surprise as he looked at the scene on the map of 9,000 miles of mountains and rivers. David gently hung the map of 90,000 miles of mountains and rivers on the wall, and then said, you can take a look at this treasure. David pulled the quilt away, but Sonia and Gu Linger closed their eyes, and none of them opened their eyes first. Open your eyes and take a look. David looked at the two people in surprise, wondering what happened to them. Sonia opens her eyes first. Gu Linger said. Linger, look first. Sonia shook her head. What's wrong with you two, open your eyes together. David's tone increased. Seeing that David was about to get angry, the two slowly opened their eyes. When Sonia and Gu Linger opened their eyes, they saw David standing in front of them, his clothes intact and nothing changed. David, where's the baby you showed us? Sonia asked strangely. Isn't this hanging on the wall? Didn't you notice? David pointed to the map of 90,000 miles of mountains and rivers and said. Gulinger glanced at the map of 9,000 miles of mountains and rivers, and asked in disbelief, "Is this painting the treasure you're talking about?" "Of course, otherwise what do you think it is?" David nodded. Gulinger opened her mouth, but she didn't know how to answer David. "David, what's so precious about this painting?" "It's the Arctic icefield, right?" Sonia spoke at this time and helped Gulinger out of the siege. "This is not an ordinary painting. You can exude your spiritual consciousness and check this painting to find out." David smiled slightly. Gulinger and Sonia exuded their spiritual consciousness at the same time, and went to explore the map of 90,000 miles of mountains and rivers. But when their consciousness just approached the map of 90,000 miles of mountains and rivers, they were directly sucked in. At this moment, Gulinger and Sonia seemed to be in the Arctic ice sheet, and even a few polar bears in the distance were still looking at them both. This time, the two of them were stunned. Chapter 999. Linger, what's going on? We're not dreaming, are we? Sonia asked in shock. I don't know either, this shouldn't be a dream, right? It feels so real. Gulinger was also confused, she didn't know what was going on. The spiritual energy here is so strong, the pores all over my body opened up unconsciously. Sonia felt the strong spiritual energy around her, and her face was excited. I feel it too. Gulinger was also surprised. This is not in a dream, but in a painting. The scenery in this painting is full of spiritual energy. We can practice in this painting in the future. At this time, David's voice came from behind the two people. David, what the H3LL is going on? Sonia hurriedly asked David. I don't know either. I got this painting from an ancient tomb. At that time, I was sucked into this painting, and only then did I know that there is another world in this painting. David also did not know the origin of the 9,000 miles of mountains and rivers map. Great, let's start practicing, I have never encountered such a strong spiritual energy. Gulinger couldn't wait to sit cross-legged on the ground. The cold of the Arctic is nothing to them at all. Kyoto Budo Alliance. Guo Wei, who did not wait for David, was furious and smashed a lot of things. As the director of the alliance, in front of so many sects and families, he was beaten by David and insulted by David. Guo Wei couldn't bear such humiliation. Guo Wei, why are you making such a fuss? Isn't the trial going well? Alliance leader Zhu Zishan came over and asked. Seeing Zhu Zishan coming, Guo Wei hurriedly suppressed his anger and said, Alliance leader, that David was so daring, he swallowed the treasure and beat me up. Zhu Zishan was stunned. What? Then David's strength can still beat you. How can Guo Wei be at the peak of Wuzong's strength? How could David beat Guo Wei? Lord, it's like this. Guo Wei told Zhu Zishan exactly what happened in the ancient tomb. When Zhu Zishan heard that David had obtained the 90,000 mile mountain and river map, his eyes were full of surprise. Guo Wei, make it clear, is that painting really a painting of mountains and rivers for 9,000 miles? Zhu Zishan asked excitedly. Yes, I opened it and read it. Long Xiao said it was very strange. After a while, the content of the painting would change by itself. Guo Wei nodded, he didn't understand why Zhu Zishan was so excited. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. Zhu Zishan laughed excitedly, that's right, it must be a map of 90,000 miles of mountains and rivers. I didn't expect that there are such treasures in our Kyoto boundary. Leader, what kind of treasure is this painting? I didn't find anything special at that time. Guo Wei asked very strangely. You don't need to ask, and you don't understand. Zhu Zishan waved his hand, then he said, David beat you up, please bear with it for the time being, and don't kill him impulsively. Leader, that David beat me in front of many aristocratic sects and made me disgraced. If I don't kill him, how can I solve the hatred in my heart? Guo Wei's eyes were full of anger. He wouldn't be able to express his anger if he didn't kill David now. Have you forgotten what Mr. Shi said? Zhu Zishan said coldly. I didn't forget, I secretly killed that David at that time, even if Mr. Shi could know who did it. A cold light flashed in Guo Wei's eyes, and he seemed to have a plan. Look at this. Zhu Zishan handed a document to Guo Wei. Guo Wei took a look and his face instantly became extremely ugly. Chapter 1000. You see, Mr. Shi specially warned about this matter. If David was killed at this time, do you think Mr. Shi would suspect you? Zhu Zishan asked. Humph, this David is too cunning. He even went to Mr. Shi first. I don't believe Mr. Shi can keep him forever. Guo Wei's clenched teeth rattled. Okay, there will be opportunities to deal with David in the future, you should go and rest first. Zhu Zishan sent Guo Wei away. Guo Wei walked back, and Zhu Zishan walked towards the backyard of the Martial Arts Alliance. The backyard was very large. There was a rockery dozens of meters high in the middle of the courtyard, and there was a waterfall fountain on it. Zhu Zishan walked to the waterfall and tapped a stone 3 times. Soon the waterfall stopped flowing, and a stone gate opened behind the waterfall. After Zhu Zishan walked in, the stone gate was closed, and the waterfall began to flow. No one could see that there were still organs here. Walking along the dark corridor for a distance, the front becomes much wider. There are many rooms inside, each room is surrounded by steel bars as thick as arms, and blue lightning can be seen constantly between these steel bars. A radiant sound made a sound. This is the basement of the Martial Arts Alliance. The people who are imprisoned here are evil cultivators, as well as some heinous warriors. The one that keeps emitting blue light is a magic circle, trapping these people here. Let me out, let me out. When Zhu Zishan entered the dungeon, someone immediately shouted, asking Zhu Zishan to let him out. Others knelt on the ground and kept kowtowing towards Zhu Zishan, begging Zhu Zishan to let him go. These people are in ragged clothes, and they have long been tortured to no one. It's just that Zhu Zishan didn't look at these people, and walked straight towards the depths of the dungeon. Going all the way to the end of the dungeon, there is still a room here. The room is extremely dark, and only a figure can be seen sitting in it. What's the matter? The figure seemed to sense the arrival of Zhu Zishan, and asked slowly. The map of 9,000 miles of mountains and rivers is here. Zhu Zishan said. When Zhu Zishan said the picture of 90,000 miles of mountains and rivers, the figure's obvious figure swayed. Get the picture. The figure said in an unquestionable tone. Yes. The dignified leader of the Kyoto Martial Arts Alliance said respectfully at this moment. After speaking, Zhu Zishan left immediately. The next morning, when David and Sonia woke up, they found that it was already bright. A person from the law enforcement pavilion was walking outside David's room, and it seemed that he was looking for David in a hurry. David hurriedly opened the door and said, "Is something wrong?" "Instructor Chen, Pavilion Master Zhao has something to do with you. I think you are still sleeping, so I didn't dare to disturb you," said the member of the Protectorate. "Oh, I'll be right there," David said. At this moment, Sonia and Gulinger came out of the room, and the two of them stretched their waists. Sonia said lazily, "Last night was so comfortable, and tonight I want to." "Yeah, I haven't felt this comfortable in a long time." Gulinger nodded. The guardian of the law looked at Gulinger and Sonia, and when he heard what the two said, he showed a playful smile, looked at David and said, "Instructor Chen, I didn't expect you to be so brave. Invincible. What's the use of 1 against 2? David looked bewildered. "Instructor Chen, stop pretending, you don't know how many people in the Protector Pavilion envy you to death, even Pavilion Master Zhao envy you." After the Dharma Protector finished speaking, he glanced at David meaningfully before leaving.